Hi, I'm Mike Eichner. I'm running for Congress in the 6th Congressional District of Washington State. I wanted to talk a little bit about the debt and why it's a big deal. We'll talk a little bit more about how we balance the budget first after we identify why this is such a big issue and why you should be concerned about it. I think everybody knows that we currently have about $16 trillion in debt now. We are adding to that debt $1 trillion each year. The interest on that debt alone, even at like 1.5%, is almost 10% of our annual federal budget. And that's only going to grow as we keep adding trillions of dollars year after year after year, and as rates eventually rise to more of their normal historical levels. If rates rise just 5 times, we've got 50% of our budget going to paying the interest on the debt. And that will squeeze out spending of any kind on a lot of things that we consider just basic essentials for our federal government to operate, like defending our country from invasion, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. So we have to address this now, because as we continue to spend, we're borrowing 40% of our federal budget right now. Right now, about 60% of our budget is the combination of Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and the interest on the debt. Everything else, including all of our military budget and all of the other departments that the federal government has, are operating on loans from the Chinese government, or from the Chinese, and from the Federal Reserve. And when you borrow from someone, it makes you a slave to them. You have to do what they say, because they could pull the rug out from under you at any time. Now, governments don't like to cut back on spending. We can see from what's happened in Greece and some of the other countries in Europe, they don't want to stop spending money they don't have. They want to keep borrowing, and when nobody wants to lend to them, they want to get somebody else to give it to them. You're going to see the same thing happen with our government. They're going to want more money. They're going to want more money. They're going to raise taxes. However, when you raise taxes on people who have a lot of money, they have the resources to be able to avoid those taxes. They have the resources to be able to decide not to spend money on investing in companies and jobs. And they have the resources to be able to leave. You and I, the middle class and everyone else, will be stuck here holding the bag when this all comes down like a house of cards. When that happens, when nations go bankrupt, a lot of things happen that are really, really very bad. And they will affect everyone in this country, everyone who's left. Because as the people who have a lot of wealth, those productive people who've created all kinds of wealth in this country, see the writing on the wall and leave, that means investment capital that could have been creating jobs in companies in the United States goes with them. So for those of us who can't leave, there'll be fewer jobs. Now, one of the other things the government likes to do in situations like this historically, because we can look at other nations that have gone this route, is they like to print the printing presses and print lots of dollars so they can continue to pay their debts and pay their employees by printing dollars. And every time they print a dollar, it makes the dollars that you hold worth less and less. It makes the cost of things that you have to buy, like food, cost more and more. And it's because they're counterfeiting. They're creating more dollars in the system, and every dollar then has less and less worth. When that happens, you get what's called hyperinflation at some point, where it goes to 1,000% or 10,000% inflation. And you'll be trying to spend money you get as fast as you can, because it may not be worth much within an hour, within a day. That destroys the economies of countries. It prevents people who've saved all their lives for retirement from being able to survive, because all the money they saved up for retirement is wiped away by the fast pace of inflation. Now, the other option is default. and currency default. But that's even worse, because then all the money you have in the bank disappears because they've created a new currency. And all your debts, of course, the bank gets transferred over into the new currency. That's why people riot when you see currency defaults in other countries. If we keep going the road we're going, we'll have currency defaults. You'll wake up someday and the banks will be closed. They won't let you take the money out, and by the time that they do open again, there won't be anything in them. Your retirement savings accounts, the government will decide that it needs to take control of, to keep them safe and to use them for whatever purposes they decide to use them for. This is a future that I don't want for my children. I don't want for your children. We need to balance the budget in years. We don't have decades to do this. We're speeding towards the cliff. The patient is bleeding to death on the operating table, and the two surgeons, the Republican surgeon and the Democratic surgeon in Congress, are arguing about which piece of shrapnel to take out before they stop the bleeding of the femoral artery. We have a lot of issues to face as a country and to argue over what types of things we want to do in our country. But the debt is something we have to address first. And to do so, in order to balance this budget while still honoring our covenantal promises, our contractual promises we've made to seniors and veterans, we need to make sure that we have run out of all other options before we touch Social Security or Medicare. We need to block grant Medicaid and other welfare programs to allow states the flexibility and the ingenuity they need to solve their own unique problems without harming those currently relying on those programs. And spending, we need to cut $1 trillion a year immediately. In order to be able to do this, it's going to hurt. We're going to have to pull the Band-Aid off fast, and we're going to have to do some things like eliminating some cabinet departments. We're going to have to get rid of energy, HUD, commerce, interior, education, and transfer those responsibilities back to the state and local levels where they can be handled with greater flexibility, accountability, and cost effectiveness. Parks and forests should be managed by the citizens of the states where those parks and forests exist. We need to abolish the Transportation Security Administration and require airlines to once again pay for their own security needs, not dip into the public treasury to have that done. We need to abolish all corporate subsidies that pick winners and losers, and all tax loopholes that reward those companies that lobby the most effectively. We need to cease all foreign aid to all nations until we get our own financial house in order. We can save no one if we're drowning ourselves in debt. We do also have to end all undeclared foreign wars. Congress has the authority to declare war, and we should never go to war against another nation unless Congress has done so. We also need to close down unnecessary military bases in foreign countries. While some bases are needed by our constitutionally authorized Navy to operate and be able to project power, many foreign bases simply transfer wealth from American taxpayers to foreign leaders. We need to spend smarter with our defense dollars at home, where they will help our local economies while also maintaining our military readiness. We need to bring our heroes home to their families. We need to stop subsidizing the military defense of other countries that allows them to bring more of our jobs over to their country because they don't have to pay for their own defense. It's immoral that our tax dollars are directly going over and helping the economies by circulating in their economies rather than ours, and at the same time allowing other countries around the world to not shoulder their own part of the military requirements they have, and as a result are more able to take American jobs overseas to their countries rather than ours. Across the board, we're going to have to return to lower spending levels, perhaps 2006 or 2004 levels, as necessary to achieve a balanced budget. It's not going to be easy. We're going to have to make significant cuts, and we're going to have to raise GDP by growing our economy so we meet in the middle as we're raising tax revenues by lowering tax rates and growing our economy. Between that growth and between the spending cuts that I've proposed, we can balance our budget in years rather than decades.